The associates of the Greek word apolumi. This term is the counterpart of the Hebrew abad, meaning to lose. Its synonyms are well worth study. It would be folly to ignore them. 2 Corinthians 4:9. Paul and his fellow helpers were being cast down but not being destroyed or lost, as in verse 3. They were afflicted, perplexed, and persecuted, but surely Paul never meant by the word destroyed that they were not being put out of existence finally and eternally. They were not put to death. James 1:11. For the sun withers the grass, and its flower falls off, and the comeliness of his aspect perishes. Thus the rich also in his goings will fade. Here the perishing is simply the natural process of physical decay. Just as the beautiful flower must wither and die, so must the wealthy man die also. In verse 10, the rich, like the flower of grass, must pass away. Romans 14:15. Be not in connection with your food destroying that one for whose sake Christ died. This is explained in verse 20. On account of food, do not be demolishing the work of God. Way reads, do not unbuild what is God's work. Rotherham reads, do not be undoing the work of God. Very literally, however, the simple sense would be, do not be losing that one. You have put a stumbling block before your brother. He is now sorrowing because you have hurt him all over food. You have not been walking in love. The probability is that you may lose him altogether. Is there here the slightest chance that anyone for whom Christ died, a believing brother or sister, might suffer what we understand by perdition? We must do nothing which might undo or destroy the faith and conscience of others. Acts 5:36 through 37. Gamaliel informs the council of the case of Theudas, who turned himself a somebody but was assassinated while his 400 followers were disbanded, and came to nothing. After this one, Judas arose, but that one also perishes, while his dupes were scattered. Gamaliel's argument was sound. Leave those Christian men alone, for if their work is of God, you cannot down-loosen them. Here the final term is kataluo, often rendered overthrow. Demolish hardly suits here. The proper sense seems to be dissever, disintegrate, or disunite. These people cannot be scattered or broken up if their work is of God. In Gamaliel's mind, there was not the slightest notion of hopeless perdition or even judgment. He sees no further than death. 1 Corinthians 10:9 through 10. Some of them put him on trial and were destroyed by the serpents. Some of them murmur and were destroyed by the desolator, Oleothretos. Other Israelites not thus destroyed were strewn along in the wilderness. Verse 5. And 23,000 others fell in one day because of their iniquity. Yet all this destruction leads no further than death. Such destruction is simply dissolution. Compare Luke 15:17 in the common versions. And I perish with hunger. Does this imply lying in a grave for a long period with eternal punishment or eternal destruction? Tyndale and the Geneva version 400 years ago did not think so. They render, and I die for hunger. 1 Corinthians 1:19. I shall be destroying the wisdom of the wise, and the understanding of the intelligent shall I be repudiating. The last word means literally unplacing, or we might say displacing, setting aside. The verse is a couplet with two parallel members, which as in Hebrew poetry explain each other. The two verbs might be exchanged without harming the sense. They are synonyms. We might even be more literal and say that I am making lost the wisdom of the wise, as in course of time. All purely human wisdom will vanish. Here we might compare Psalm 5:6, which in the Revised Standard Version reads, Thou destroyest those who speak lies. In the King James 16:11 version, this is, Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The old word here is a relic from Wycliffe, who produced a play upon words. Thou shalt lease, L-E-E-S-E, meaning make lost, all that speaking, leasing, falsehood. Elsewhere, Wycliffe uses lease, but it is most unfortunate that this word slipped out of use soon after his time. As it would have been extremely useful, it might have prevented the word destroy from being used so commonly to represent many Hebrew words and some Greek words. In verse 8 of Luke 15, if she lose one piece does not mean destroy one piece, but rather if she renders one piece lost through her own carelessness or actions. Matthew 2:13, Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. This is explained by verse 16, where Herod slew all the children. In verse 18, Rachel did not wish to be consoled because her children are not. Nothing more than death is meant here. Matthew 12:14, the Pharisees took counsel how they might destroy the Lord. From chapter 27:1, we learn that the chief priests and the Jews took counsel to put him to death, while John 5:18 says the Jews sought the more to kill him. The three expressions are synonymous. Matthew 8:25, the disciples cried, Lord, save us, we are perishing. In other words, they were about to become lost. They wanted deliverance from an untimely death, not from extinction, or permanent annihilation. John 10:27 through 28, my sheep may by no means be destroyed or perish, become lost for the age. Lostness will only obtain during the eon or obscure time period. There is an implication that other sheep not at present belonging to Christ will during the eon be destroyed or lost. When the Lord sent out the 12, he instructed them to gather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He instructed them to go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, Matthew 10:6. To go to destroyed sheep would be useless. To go to sheep that were already irretrievably lost or annihilated would have been stupidity. The Greek word means having become lost, apolioto, or ota. It is evident that great blessing awaited some of the same lost sheep. Some of them must have been found and saved. Can an almighty God not reach all lost sheep? Suppose God leaves the 99, including yourself, and goes out after the lost one. Would that make you jealous?